Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Stephanie Caston, and this is Recast, a film and television analyst show. Tonight, I have special guest Lawrence Jackson, a friend from high school, and he is an artist and works for a nonprofit in Central Ohio. Lawrence, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. I know it's late, and we kept putting back this episode for a while, so I'm glad that we're able to sit down and do this episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So everyone, this episode is gonna be different because one, my puppy ate my charger to my laptop, so I'm recording on my phone. So I'm not able to see Lawrence right now. So or you might not be able to see me. I'm not exactly certain. So that's why it looks a little bit different. And hopefully by next episode, everything should be right on track. But tonight's theme is civil rights. We have old film, The Long Walk Home, new film, I Am Not Your Negro, old TV show, A Different World, season 5, episode 14, and the new TV show, Dear White People. So, starting off, we're going to do The Long Walk Home. This is just some facts. It was written by John Cork, directed by Richard Pierce. It came out in 1990. I think I was five then, five or six. It stars Whoopi Goldberg, Sissy Spacek, Ving Rhames, and Erica Alexander. For those of you who don't know who Erica Alexander, she is in Living Single. She plays Maxine. And then there's a small little cameo from Jason Weaver. And did you happen to catch that? Did you catch that was
I
Jason
did
Weaver?
catch that. I caught that the first scene. It was like, oh man, that's my guy. But I remember him from like the Jackson 5 miniseries. So
Yes,
I know him for a while. So
the
yeah,
smart guy, and
yeah,
it's smart, and the Lion King. So yeah, love
that's
Jason
right.
Weaver.
That's right. Yeah. Little,
Now for what were you saying?
no, a little Simba. I just give a little color commentary every now and then. So don't mind me.
All right, cool, great. Now, this film was nominated for two nominations: an Image Award for Outstanding Lead, which was Whoopi Goldberg, and for the young actress, the Lexi Randall. So I thought it should have gotten more awards. What did you think? Do you think this movie should have gotten a few more nominations or awards?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very good movie, and I will say, unfortunately, but fortunately, I just watched it today, so
So this is your first time ever seeing it.
ever seeing it. Yeah. So, I
Interesting.
mean, but it was magical still. And I mean, it came out in 1990. I kind of squinted, and those that are going to be able to see me during the video when you said that you were about five. Yeah, I was seven. No, yeah, not that much older, but yeah, I was seven then. So I wouldn't have known it at this point. My son is seven right now. So
Hmm.
that he's interested in is not this. Uh, I know if my parents would have had it on, which I'm sure they did, I probably walked in and walked out. Just the old texture of it, I wouldn't have appreciated it until today. So I do thank you again for having me and having this a part of this discussion because it took me back. Uh,
Mm.
with the other films that we're going to discuss later on, it really brought you back and in a society that we're in right now and what everything that has gone down, not just last year, but I mean, 2, 3 weeks ago, it
Mm.
really took back to say, this is still going on. So when you asked, should they have gotten another award? I liked it. I enjoyed it thoroughly. You would have to look at the other movies in that year, but I really enjoyed it.
And that's fair. That's fair because 1990 was the big year because I think Home Alone even came out around that. It either came out in 1990 or 91 because I did an episode of Home Alone and I'm already forgetting what year that came out. So
Yeah.
films were really big back then. So if
Yeah.
it didn't, I understand. But I really like this film, and sometimes I get it confused with The Ghost of Mississippi because that one's about Medgar Evers. So sometimes I get those two films confused. But yeah, I definitely watched this. I think I was 8 when I watched it initially, but not when I
Yeah.
was 5. So yeah.
And just looking at the nominations of today, I don't know if it would have been many nominations for us back then either. So,
Mm, that's fair. That's fair. Now, here's some of the trivia for the film. One of the buses used in the background is the actual bus number 2857, on which Rosa Parks was arrested. The bus was in such bad shape that it had to be repainted and towed by a cable in scenes where it was moving. It has since been fully restored and is now on display at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. Did you know that?
No, I did not. And I'm
Neither
a
did I.
for for off the wall facts, and I did not know that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty
Movie
interesting.
for today. To be fair, I
Huh?
didn't know the movie. I knew of the movie. I heard of the movie. I just didn't know the movie. So if I would have seen facts come across my board, I probably wouldn't have paid attention to it just because I didn't know. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. Now, this is a more recent fact. During a March 2020 interview with Terry Gross on the NPR program Fresh Air, which is in Chicago, or at least maybe they do nationally, but NPR is big in Chicago. Um, Octavia Spencer recalled that as a Montgomery, Alabama high school student, she managed through her sheer perseverance to convince the producers of The Long Walk Home to hire her as an on-set intern. Many years later, Octavia Spencer went on to win a Best Supporting Actress Oscar for the movie The Help, which The Long Walk Home also stars Sissy Spacek. So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. And like those movies are The Help and this were very similar, which is why I wasn't that impressed with The Help. I liked it, but it was so overhyped. I'm like, you guys haven't seen The Long Walk Home? So that's why I'm like, oh, okay, that's why I'm like, I've seen this already. So yeah.
Yeah. I appreciate that because there are movies that I say I've seen this before. I just wish that Hollywood would get more creative, depend more on youthful minds. There's a lot of young people up and coming that may have some off the wall ideas, but if they team
Mm,
with the right crew, I mean, they could really make something happen. So I agree with the help. Like you do feel now that I've seen The Long Walk Home, I do feel like, oh yeah, I did see this, just a more updated version of it.
exactly, exactly. And my years working in the industry, the long story short is it's easier to be safe than to be sorry. They would rather take a chance of something that
Yeah.
was a
Yep.
big hit before than to remake something completely off the wall and it flop. So I
Right.
definitely get it.
Yep.
Now, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was agreeing with you. I said, yeah, but the first thing that came to my mind as a complete failure was Child's Play. They wrote,
Whoa.
I
Wait,
just
the one from the 80s or the one that came out a few
yeah, the
years
little
ago?
Chucky doll.
Yeah, which one? The one from the 80s
No,
or the
I'm
one that
talking about the entire franchise. It just went downhill. Like I remember the one in the '80s. I was terrified to go downtown because I just remembered the city being in the movie, and I just
It
I could
is in
walking down the
Chicago.
street.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it was
Yeah.
Chicago, and my memory serves me correct because I remember, like, you know how it was too far back in the day, so you don't really remember, but you start to pick up on things that there's something in your soul, just like you've been here before. The
Mm,
thing that the Chucky doll is running across the street, and I think my great grandfather lived around there because I remember
wow.
underneath the train station. I mean, not the train station, the train tracks that are suspended above the streets. I remember
Mhm.
those areas, and he lived not too far from there. But yeah,
Yeah, I didn't like Child's Play. I mean, Child's Play is a great movie, but it
yeah,
scares me because I'm a girl and I had dolls. So when that movie came out, I had a doll. So I'm like, is this thing gonna move? So to this day, that movie creeps me out. So let's go back to The Long
yeah,
Walk Home because I don't want
yeah,
to be creeped out by this movie.
yeah.
But this scene right here, the screen that I have up now, I wanted to shout out the editing and the graphics and the colorist because I
Yeah,
like that it started off
yeah,
in black and white and it transitioned to a nice softer um, 1950s because this is set place in 1955,
yeah,
and that's how it would look if it were in 1955 because if you watch like a colorized version of I Love Lucy, they would use this color. So I want
yeah,
to give a shout out to that.
yeah. I agree with that. It was pretty cool to see that transition. I was hoping in the beginning that this wasn't going to be black and white. While I appreciate black and white films, I just I was like, oh, I thought this was going to be in color. I thought, because that just brings a whole element to it. And you're right, this softer color, but just the color scheme of it. And to know that they use the actual buses was really cool. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
agreed.
Yeah.
This is a shout out to the cinematography. For those of you who are not familiarized with cinematography, it's not only the camera shots and the angles, but also lighting. But for this one, this is more of a camera shot. This is pulling focus. So the camera is focused all the way on Whoopi Goldberg, and you have Sissy Spacek blurred, and then it pulls focus and it zooms in on her because this is the conversation right after they just came back from the park, and she called the sheriff to get the police officer fired. So I didn't want to give that shout out. I didn't notice that. Did you happen to notice any camera tricks on
Uh,
in this film?
I mean, you're much more advanced when it comes to like production and terminology. I do notice things. I went
Mm-hmm.
to school as ended up graduating as a journalism major, specifically
Mm,
in the field of editing. So now
mm,
it's a gift and a curse that I see these things. So I did notice that, oh, that was a nice play on the focus. It was nice to know that. I mean, this wasn't that long ago, but it was enough to be like, oh, you had that type of technology and
mm.
how to use it professionally enough to where you could take that chance on this shot. 'Cause I wouldn't imagine how much that shot would have cost to create. Because I would imagine that's a specialized lens. So you're bringing in a different lens to shoot this shot where it's focusing in on two subjects. So I noticed different levels of it, but I'm sure you're going to bring out some more like verbiage and description. So yeah.
Somewhat. I'm not going to bring up too much verbiage because I don't want it to be a teaching class, but I just want to give
Okay.
those shout outs to let them know that I see
Got it.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout
But
out.
right, shout out.
Yeah.
Now, what I noticed the theme of this film is the biggest is the production design. Because when you do this is called a period piece, meaning that this was I mean, you could film something now and in the plot of the film could be in the past. So it's the period piece of the 1950s. I like the theme of it. It's a little bit mostly classism with racism during segregation. So with classism, they noticed. I know this isn't the greatest screen, but over to the left, there's Whoopi Goldberg and her family's Christmas tree. Look how it looks very Charlie Brownish, very scrawny, not much. But you go over to the right and you see Sissy Spacek's room filled with gifts, and it's just the four of them. And they're full tree and it's very decorative. So I do notice the production design, and that is just to highlight the differences in money at the time of this, because at the end of the day, Whoopi Goldberg is the maid. She's not making that much money. This is one of the few jobs Black people were able to get in the South. They just have to be grateful, shut up, and it's just little things like that when it comes to classism. She had to take the bus just to get to work. It's already on the other side of town, but now that they're striking, she sacrifices her feet because back then you're wearing heels to walk. And then Sissy Space is like, I don't even have a job. We have a car. So I could just pick you up on like Tuesdays and Thursdays or Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays or whatever. But, it's no big deal. But to the Black family, it is a big deal. So I want to shout out the production team to emphasize the money differences because they did a really good job of it. They didn't say it in the plot, but they showed it in other ways. And then even down to the other two pictures, you have white families. Oh, well, this street is going to be named after you. It's like, what? To this day, I don't know many Black people who work in the government or work in that type of field to be like, oh, I'm going to have a street named after my own children. So that's one aspect of it. And then the last thing I'll say is that even looking at the family, Whoopi Goldberg's family, like they have a small little kitchen, a small little everything. So yeah, That's what I noticed. What did you notice? Do you agree? Do you disagree? So yeah.
I definitely agree. I definitely agree. It was a lot of classism, like you said, top left hand corner, and you're looking at that scrawny tree. What really stood out to me was not only that you could see through it, but then when the camera panned over to the stockings, they was really old socks.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you see that scene, you see even the curtains, like just how the curtains were different, the lamps, and in both scenes right here, what you have the Christmas tree, the blinds, the drapes, the lamp, even pictures. You're seeing the different levels of class at the time, and we're gonna
The
get
camera, the father with the video
yeah,
camera.
yeah, the video camera. Like, who would have? I've never seen anything like that. So to know that back in the day, this is what cameras look like if you were wealthy enough to be able to capture these moments. But then the little girl was so telling. Uh,
Mm,
I feel like she started to realize what was going on in the entire story.
yeah.
And she realized that they weren't getting what she was getting, and whatever she had the gift for, like for some reason all of that just kind of built up on her without her even noticing. That she like stopped in the doorway with like a blank face as to she couldn't believe what was going on.
Mm,
I agree with like the street. I went to the Ohio State University. One of the big pieces of the university is this like pebble stone pathway on the way to the stadium, the shoe, and they have, I'm sure, the wealthy names that were able to afford a stone in this pebble path on the way to the stadium. They have their name engraved into it. And when I see
mm.
these streets, it was almost like that. It was almost like my status was good enough to put my name on this pebble that you walk over. I support your traffic into the stadium. Um, that
They
was
normally,
that
yeah, because
traffic street
like
sign.
usually with universities or museums or whatever,
Yeah,
it's like 25,000 plus. Like, oh, for
yeah, oh, yeah,
$25,000, we could put your name on the pebble. What?
yeah.
Who
Right.
has that just to give? You know what I mean?
But
So
I
yeah.
mean, and then you look at these big universities like Ohio State, and it's like, yeah, they got a lot of people that would give back. So yeah, they are able to command 25,000 because now it's a status thing. It's a different. And again, we get into the different movies when they're talking about different levels and how high up you get and how out of tune you get with real society. This was real society for a lot of people in your bottom right hand corner. It's
Yeah.
people jam packed in a kitchen that, I mean, that's ridiculous. It should be ridiculous in people's minds that that's your kitchen. And I don't know if you noticed, I'm sure you had, but they walk through the door into the living room, and then they walk through that door into the parents' bedroom, and then they walk through that door into the kitchen. So like if
Oh, I didn't even notice
they
that.
had to go through the bedroom to get to the kitchen. And it was like that was just on top of being cramped in space. Your room is the traffic way.
Wow, I didn't even notice that. That's one
Yep.
thing I didn't notice that, and that's a
Yep.
family of five because
It's a
you have
family of five.
one, right? You have a daughter and you have two sons.
Yeah.
So yeah, and who knows? Like this is gonna take me off topic, but it reminds me of the Jackson family
Yeah.
because I think at the time the Jacksons had what, five kids before they moved to California, but it was like they're on top of each other in like a two-bedroom, and the
Yeah.
boys slept out or good times. Like family members sleep here, sleep on the floor, sleep on the couch, and then you have these affluent families who are like, oh, everyone has their own bedroom, and we have this and we have that. So yeah,
We have a great room and we have a playroom and we have a basement. And it's like
exactly,
they didn't know this stuff.
exactly. But overall, we can now talk about the things that I liked and things that I wish would have changed or recast. So again, this theme is civil rights. I liked it was classism mixed with racism and segregation. I liked that it was more about the lives of the citizens versus the leaders that led the civil rights movement. Yeah, they talked about Dr. Martin Luther King and everything, but really it's about the workers and the people who suffered to do the march. So that's what I like about it. It's that angle. It's like, I have to walk across town. And then the daughter, Erica Alexander, she's like, y'all tripping. I'm still gonna see my man. I'm gonna take this bus. But she had to get a wake up call as to how real things are and racism is. So I like that aspect of it. And then it wasn't too heavy on the white savior nor magical Negro. That's one thing I appreciated. I like the fact that, yeah, Sissy Spacek, she helped out, but it wasn't like, oh, she saved the march. So she just helped out every once in a while. But the real hero was Whoopi Goldberg, because even in the end, if you look at these pictures, uh, yeah, Whoopi looking at the camera, almost breaking the fourth wall, but she's looking off to the side, but she's saying like, "I have to stand up," and she does. She stands up in the upper right hand corner. They make a pathway. She's brave in that she sacrifices herself, but she's being a hero. She's brave enough to go against this crowd of white men, not just women, well, white men who could do anything from lynch them to kill them, and she's like, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna be brave. So that's one of the things I liked about it. So before I go into what I didn't like about it, tell me, what did you like about this film?
So I definitely agree with what you said, more so on the second one. Uh,
Mm,
I was, it wasn't a shock. Well, I will, okay, so I'll say this because it's early on and it's going to play through all of these films. Um, I feel bad because I feel like I didn't know Black history in its entirety, and I still don't until I got to
mm,
college. I feel like my education robbed me
agreed.
learning about this. You knew about it, but you didn't know about it. Like we didn't push it. We did it for February, and February is the shortest
If
month
that.
of the year. So, what do you expect for us to retain? And not knowing the true meaning of Juneteenth until I was a freshman in college, and like just stuff like that. Um, so I appreciate the fact that they stood away from the people we already know.
Yeah.
Yeah, who were the other people? So I was pleasantly surprised to hear Dr. King's voice. No, well, yes, let me say that. Go back because I heard Rosa Parks' name first. So
Mm,
it wasn't like the kids ran home and he had the letter, and the letter, that whatever the newsletter was, that said the second woman has gotten arrested for not sitting in her seat on the bus, and now it's time for us to do something. And it just so happened that that second woman was Rosa Parks.
yeah.
So now that was just a little sprinkle of history that we can go away with to say, oh, she wasn't the first one to get arrested. She was the second one. And it was just two women to get arrested, and everybody put their foot down like, no, we got to do something about it. Just like we're seeing now with everything that's going on, it was like, all right, we got one shooting, we got two shooting, all right, let's put our foot down, and then chaos ensues. And so I like that, to where we heard about her, we saw the uproar, we saw everybody congregate at the church, and then you heard Dr. King. I'm glad that they didn't show Rosa Parks or show
Yeah.
Dr. King. It was like I didn't want to see another actor portrayed as either one of them. Like I
It,
appreciated that movie for it because it just gave you just what you needed to know. You need to know
yeah.
every time they go to the church, Dr. King is running them big meetings and everybody's going there. No matter if your feet bleeding or what, you're going there. So I do appreciate that. I appreciated the characters, not only the characters, who they picked for those roles. Uh,
Mm,
and back in this time when they released it, 1990.
yeah. 1990.
So 1990. I mean, I know about Ghosts and I know about, Class Act or Sister Act, and I know about these movies that she was in, but I don't know how big of a whoopee she was at this moment. Because if she wasn't at that moment, this would have took her over the top. Or even if she was at that moment, and I apologize for not knowing how awesome she was at that moment in time, but this would have just took her off in a different direction. Because
Yeah.
this was almost like Color Purple, but
Mm,
like took her off in a different direction because it showed a different level of the maturity of Whoopi. So I appreciated that. Like I said, I appreciated the casting. It was nice to see a lot of people. I meant to ask you, um, who is the middle boy, the one that got beat up? I mean, is he a famous? I mean, because everybody else seemed to turn out famous in their own right. But did he turn out to be any?
I haven't seen him since then, but maybe he may look different.
Yeah,
He got older, but I didn't
yeah,
recognize him to me. Everyone else I recognized. Actually, you're right. Like everyone else was a big star. I could look that up
yeah,
and do a follow up. But yeah, everyone else turned out into something. But I have not seen him since this film.
yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, I'll leave it at that. I appreciated what you had over there as well.
Yes. And one last thing I want to add to what I did like. I like the fact that they were very blatant about their racism. They were just they went
Yeah,
there. They
yeah,
were very obvious. The dinner table they talked about like, well, black people this, black people that, and they're not afraid to when the maid walks in because now it's different. Because now it's like, oh, if I'm talking about you, when you walk into the room, I'll change the topic, I'll joke about it, or I won't, I'll hush. But these white people in this film were like, I said what I said, and I'll say it again. I'll repeat it to your face.
yeah,
And then we couldn't do or say anything about that. Times have definitely changed. So it's interesting to see a then and now. And then we as blacks don't say anything until after we completely have left the home. The black people didn't even talk about it in the kitchen. They waited until after their shift was over to talk about all that. So I appreciate that. Now,
yeah.
moving
Absolutely.
on to what I would have liked to see, I would like to see a little bit more from Whoopi and more from a little bit of a plot. Um, I would like to have seen whether I would also like to see their families collide or try to get to know each other. I mean, I guess that's what the realism part is because it will tie into I Am Not Your Negro because James Baldwin in I Am Not Your Negro says that segregation starts when I leave my door. You live your life and I live my life. So I guess this film definitely reflects that. So, but I would have liked to have seen their families kind of get to know each other. That didn't happen. I would have liked to see that. And then let's see, I would rather see how it affected their home versus being upset about the strike. I would like to see what I meant by that is that with the white people, I wanted to see it break their banks. They seemed irritated by the strike, but they didn't really go into detail as to how it really negatively affected them. It seemed more of like a nuance than anything. So you tell me what would have changed or what didn't you like about this film?
So before I forget, I would like to go back to your second point.
Okay.
So I feel like we have seen this story so long that they stepped out on faith to show you a little bit of what their household looked like. I
Mm.
so it like we always see the not the slave movie, but we always see the help movie. We always see the black family fending out for themselves. We always see that dynamic. I rarely
Mhm.
see the dynamic of a borderline racist
Mm.
point in time. Like I mean, the names escape me. I got my notes down here, but I'm not as good as you with remembering the names. But the father, uh,
Mhm. The one the picture right
Norman,
here, the
Norman, yeah. So
uh-huh.
Norman, like I felt like he was always on that fence, and I felt like
Mhm.
going to that Confederate meeting, whatever he had to turn on in his body and his soul, it turned on at that moment. And I don't know if
Mm.
it was his brother because Mary Catherine was saying uncle. She said uncle one time.
Mhm. No, yeah, that is his brother. They're
Okay,
brothers.
so that was his brother. It just threw me
Yeah.
off at the end, and that's one of my gripes. But it threw me off when how blatant he was. Um,
Mm.
yeah, it struck me how it was a time to where you can just say what you wanted, and it was so accepted, like so
Yeah.
accepted. And now like going back to your point, you were like they could just say it in there, and then the black people wouldn't talk about it in the kitchen. They wait till they got home and talked about it, and now it's completely different. Like
Mhm.
to talk about it right now, and even a group full of white people, it's not all racist. Like you gotta know your company. If you're
Mm.
sit here and you about to talk about black people, you better know your company in 2021 because
Yeah.
there's some of them that they will rock with us, and they didn't had enough too. They didn't had enough around seeing all their black friends and their black possible family members suffer with this in this century. So I do like the fact that they went more on their side on the household, because then you also saw how strong the wife was,
Mm.
how strong it was. Like, you know what? I grew up around help. I have no problem with them because I've always connected with them. There was nothing. Now they've got the dynamic of her going through the pictures, and she's seeing the different instances where the help was helping mother. Like, this was the mother at the time, essentially. So it just like going back to the picture of Whoopi and her looking down at I keep saying the mother, uh,
Sissy? Spixer?
Marion, Miriam.
Mm.
So looking down at Miriam and knowing how strong she was at that point, not only to be the taxi driver, but to really stand up at a time where, honestly, and which was a gripe of mine, I don't believe those white people would have cleared the wave for everybody to just pass and go. I don't think that would have happened back in 1955. So
No.
yeah, I
And
feel
we'll
like
see we'll see that in I Am Not Your Negro. We see how hostile it was. You don't just
yeah,
go hostile and then spread. No, no.
I was like, you just spread the Red Sea. It was, you see,
Yeah.
let them go, and then they sing this magical hymn that just turns all people away in 1955. I don't believe that. So I mean, I was kind of disappointed at that point. It was overshadowed by the great acting of Whoopi. You saw her crying, you saw her emotion. Of course, you saw Miriam crying. The daughter was a mess, which I felt like she played one of the a hell of a role. So it was overshadowed by that moment, but it was almost unbelievable knowing,
Mhm.
seeing I'm Not Your Negro. It's like,
Mhm.
no, I'm sorry, that wouldn't have happened. Especially after they intimidated them so much. They pushed that
Yeah.
so far, and you're telling me this is a sea of cowards. Y'all just
Yeah, exactly.
coward.
Oh,
No,
go here you
don't
go.
believe it.
Yeah,
Crowbars
exactly.
and all of that. No, throughout the movie, you saw it progressing towards aggression, and I just thought they was about to die in that line, singing at him and everything.
Right, they're gonna be singing it in heaven.
She about to go with him.
Right. So this is my rating system. I use cherry colas because that's the drink I get every time I go to the movie theater. Out of five, because you see the system right there, I ranked it a three. I think rewatching it now, I think that the plot could have been a lot stronger. So I give it a three, maybe even a 3.5. So what would you give this out of a five?
I would give it a 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, 5 is perfection. I would give it a 4. I feel you when you go back and rewatch stuff, you do tend to pick up on different things that you don't catch the first time. But I thought it was a great movie. So I'm not gonna go down. I mean, you've seen a lot more movies. You've seen this more times than one. So you're rating more accurately to your vantage point, but I'll give it a 4.
Okay. All right, perfect. Now, moving on to I Am Not Your Negro.
Yeah.
Let's see. This film, here's some trivia. It's on Pluto TV. And for people who want to watch Long Walk Home, that was on Pluto TV as well. So this was directed by Raoul Peck. Forgive me if I'm saying it wrong. Written by James Baldwin and Raoul Peck. Because this is James Baldwin unfinished manuscript of his book. This film came out in 2016. It stars. It's mostly off. It's a documentary, but it's based off of, like I said, James Baldwin's writing and narrated by Samuel L. Jackson. It had 31 wins, 49 nominations, including Oscar nominated nominee for Best Documentary. Are you surprised that it got nominated for an Oscar?
No,
No.
surprised. It was that compelling.
Mm,
Paid attention to what you were listening to. They had to. Yeah.
yeah. I wonder who it was going against that it didn't win. So that I'm gonna look at that to see,
Yeah.
huh?
No, it was going back to my point. Like, I see like, oh, who won that year? But then it's like, okay, who did they go against? I want
Yeah.
movies too. So
Yeah. And like I just said, it's a 30-page unfinished manuscript for a novel. In a way, he finishes it by other interviews, by writings by Baldwin, and expanding on the themes through archival footage. So yeah, that's what I liked about it. So this is a little bit hard to see because it's on my phone. I'm gonna try to zoom in. Oh, good, I
I
can.
got it.
So
Oh, there you go.
perfect. So in 1979, acclaimed author James Baldwin commits to a complete endeavor. He tells the story of America through the lives of three of his murdered friends. I'm like that they said the word murdered.
Murdered.
Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King Jr., and Malcolm X. Because everyone keeps, and this is the week, we're filming it this week. This is going to premiere tomorrow. This is, MLK's birthday, MLK Day, Civil Rights Month, and everyone wants to. This was inauguration day yesterday. Everyone keeps wanting to talk about peace and love and MLK, but he was also murdered. And that's what Black people will always remind you of. Like, you talk that peace game, but at the end of the day, yeah, I wanted him dead, and he was. It wasn't just a one-off lone wolf. Uh, they took the family took him to court in 1994. They did say that the government was behind it. So yeah. Um, Sorry. So the name of the title was Remember This House. So going back to, me and you went to the same high school, and we talked about this, on a different time, but do you remember what was said about Malcolm X or Medgar Evers growing up? Do you remember any of that?
So I definitely remember Malcolm X, not
Really?
storyline of Spike Lee's movie X. That opened it up to a whole different genre, like Red. Like I didn't know who Red was, but Medgar Evers, I never heard of until the movie.
Mm. Until this
It
movie.
could be my ignorance. I could have heard it. I had many. I mean, well, I take that back because it was all in high school, so really didn't learn too much until I got to college,
That's
unfortunately.
fair. Same with me. I didn't learn too much about Black history until I minored in it in Black World Studies, and that's when. And I guess I knew about Medgar Evers only in the movie Ghost of Mississippi. Like I said, also starred Whoopi Goldberg and Alec Baldwin. So that's his story. But us in history, they don't talk about it. They only, when you think of civil rights movies, you default to Martin Luther King. And I didn't even know about James Baldwin until a few years ago.
Oh
We
yeah, me
we
either.
we did. We didn't read him about him in school. If they did, it was probably in honors classes or some special class. But on average, the average student probably would have known about this. So
No,
yeah,
and I can almost guarantee we didn't really know about Malcolm X because he was such a rebel in the beginning.
yeah,
Just
same.
his
And I
lifestyle,
didn't.
the way that he turned into who he turned into before he started seeing the mountaintop, like Martin Luther King says that he did. He started seeing that towards the end. I I don't think they wanted us to hear that. He
No.
started a revolution. Like he did start a revolution for quite some time. So yeah, they didn't want us to hear that, but we heard it.
And Yeah, and I didn't see Malcolm X until a few years ago, because I get, I don't know why I didn't see it when I was younger, because my dad never talked about it, and like I said, we didn't learn about it in school, and I only learned about it briefly in college. But yeah, him knowing that, it's funny because Malcolm saw Martin's way, and then Martin saw Malcolm's way, but they
Yep.
both had the same fate. that's
Yeah.
that's one interesting thing.
Yeah.
But going toward these pictures, these are the pictures that stood out to me. What I loved about this documentary is that it talked about the past and it compared to today.
Yeah.
Well, 2016, 2015. But to
Today.
show us that, yeah, today, 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. These pictures could have been last week. They could have been over the summer. Nothing has changed, even
It
to
could have
this
been
day.
today and we would have believed it.
Exactly. Literally. Because not there haven't been any laws that have been changed. You know, everyone keeps talking about defunding the police. None of that has happened. For those of you who don't know, in America, we had the Capitol was rioted, and they're doing the aftermath of that now. But will there be any laws that are changed? Either way, that has nothing to do with black people. And it's like we've been telling people forever that there's been racist in in the military, there's been racism as cops. It's just so much and nothing has changed. So that's one thing I really appreciate about this film. And some of these pictures, that last film was more about cinematography. These pictures really stood out to me. So I narrowed it down so that we can fit it into time. Um, Over to our left, how antagonizing white men were to black people. Black women, doesn't it doesn't matter if you're a man, doesn't matter if you're a woman or a child, you got antagonized. So to go back to the long walk home, yeah, those men in the film were antagonizing, but it was very hostile. They had signs like in the middle of my screen. Who needs niggers? You had up signs, you're protesting, like this could have been done today. You know what I mean? It's not so overt, but the signs are still there. You know what I mean? And then I want to discuss the movie up top right. Basically, how this little girl she tried to pass for white, and the little kids were like, "Oh, I didn't know she was colored. I didn't know, that she was black." And the girl feeling shamed and embarrassed to be biracial. So that's I didn't see this movie, but I'll be intrigued to see this movie and how the storyline plays out because back in those times, black black actors and actresses didn't have a say as to what roles that they could play. So this film does put down, the actors that played all these negative stereotypes, but we also have to remember we weren't directors then. We weren't writers then. So if we wanted to work in Hollywood, we had to like kind of bucket and then take what we can get. So before I move on to the rest of the, slide, do you agree or disagree with anything that I've said so far?
I, of course, agree with the vast majority of it. I see this as racism evolving.
Ooh, okay. How
I
so?
mean, it's a lot of, I mean, especially what we saw 2 weeks ago. I don't necessarily, and I mean, there's going to be people that disagree with me, and people who disagree all the time, but I didn't necessarily see that as 100% racism. I see
Oh,
that,
which part?
huh?
Oh, which part was not
Two
100%
weeks
racist?
ago,
Oh
the
no.
taking of the Capitol. I don't see that as racism. I see that as white supremacy. That is
Ooh.
anything other than white supremacy, white nationalism. It just this is we feel like we are so privileged that we can storm your U.S. Capitol. We can try to overtake your sitting government. I picked up these zip ties in a hallway. I wanted to take them back to the cops. Yeah, like they're so privileged. They think that they can get away with this and tell this lie. And they're just, oh, that's fine. Oh, yeah.
Mm,
You think they have a sophisticated camera system in there, a much more sophisticated hidden camera in there. Like
mm,
so much that went into them trying to overtake it that it was much more than racism. They beat
mm.
white men down. They beat white women down. They didn't care. They was beating down the cops. They killed
Yeah.
cops out there. So it's like that is a different level of this mindset that slavery happened and I'm benefited from it in a different way. I'm benefited from it at such a high level that I can't even appreciate where I'm at. So I'm just going to demean everything else that's around me. It's a whole different level of where it's going, and I think we're looking at this movie, this timeline. This was James Baldwin. This was in the 50s and the 60s. Whereas what we see today is just an involvement, an evolving system from what we're looking at in front of us. These
Because
signs are
oh,
everywhere.
yeah.
There's
These
still
are
lines of white people that follow black people and yell at them and cuss at them and push them over. Like there's still all of this going on. Still these parties of blackface. Right? It's just like this is just an evolvement of this timeline.
Yes, because the people over to the left, the ones who are doing it now are their children.
Yeah.
Because this wasn't that long ago.
No.
Because uh, the film takes place in 55. My dad was born in 56. He just had a birthday, 65 years old last week. So it's like,
Happy birthday.
yeah. So it's like you not that long ago. So it's
Yeah.
like people are still alive. So yeah, that's taught and it's passed down, and no one was ever punished for it. That's why
Yeah.
it evolved.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's still happening today. People are still calling the cops on black people, and that's how they're antagonizing. But to finish this slide, because we could talk about that topic already. The
Right.
secret of selling the Negro. um the funny thing is that it isn't the secret to selling to the Negro, it's selling the secret of selling the Negro. Like
Yeah.
it's like, and that's still true to this day. And because we get so caught up, because there's so many negative stereotypes of black people being poor, we have to overcompensate to show that I can dress nice as well as you are. So you don't have to treat me bad because I'm black, but now because I'm black, it's colorism, not colorism, racism and classism combined. Because
Yeah.
it's like I have to dress nice just so that you won't treat me bad. Because you're already going to treat me bad because I'm black. I don't want you to treat me bad because I'm black and I'm wearing a certain name brand or I'm not wearing a certain name brand. So they almost go hand in hand. So, yeah. And then, of course, I love the documentary Shots Out Tamir Rice. They do that again in Dear White People. I love that. I appreciate that. And then, of course, this picture down here scares me.
Yeah.
And the bug-eyedness of black people, that always scared me because it always looks kind of possessed and demonic, and it's a caricature, and that scares me. Did you wanted to add anything else before I go on to the next slide?
On that last point, but yeah, that picture, it does. It just demeans a monster. And
Yeah.
it's crazy because I mean, we seen the beauty that is Michelle Obama last night or yesterday
Mhm.
at the inauguration, and how gracious she was and how glowing she was, and she was just popping in every manner. But then you got people out here that demean her look, that draw caricatures that resemble these old pictures of just Aunt Mamas and monkeys and this, that, and the other. And it's still the mindset today. Like I said, everything that we see right here is still happening today. From Tamir Rice, the selling of the Negro. Like, I mean, you still sell it.
Yeah.
NBA, NFL, like we see it again evolving. It's just on a different level. But they weren't able to play back then. So here we have
Mm.
it. But yeah, these pictures, they always came off as a connotation of a monster to me. So yeah, the bug eyes, all of that. We always have the dark shading. The ones that are pitch black even scare me more. But I mean, we share
Yeah.
the same sympathy of rest of African Americans and everybody else, black and brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, these are the things I'm gonna go through them quickly. Hold on one second. I'm just gonna read through them. Some of the notes that I had. I had that James Baldwin was saying he doesn't hate whites. He's like, I
Yeah.
want to make this clear. I don't hate you, but I think you hate me. Um, um, and then he made a point about rooting for Gary Cooper until you realize Gary Cooper, I guess, because I didn't watch Gary Cooper or John Wayne, but I know his sentiment. Because I was watching the episode of I Love Lucy and they were playing Cowboys and Indians, and that's when it hit me. I'm like, wait a minute. The
Yeah.
Cowboys are the good guys and the Indians are the bad guys. And it's like, we came to their land and we killed them and they're the villains. Interesting. But this goes into that sentiment of Gary Cooper, is that you're rooting for him until you realize we're the enemy.
Yeah.
If you're white, that's the good guy. Witness versus an actor, and I thought that was very important. His goal was to move largely and freely as possible, so you write the story and you get it out there, get it out to the public. I thought
Yeah.
that was pretty interesting. This was a red flag to me that the FBI has files on James Baldwin, and they try to make talk about his sexuality. I'm like, what does it have to do with anything? And how
But
is he such of a threat?
not even that they had facts, that they assumed
Mm,
it was referenced as it was assumed that he was a homosexual, and they put that in his FBI file. And I don't know
yeah,
the order of how it read, because editing, you can switch an order and just make it more dramatic. But they had that show first, and then they said that they think that he's in the cahoots with he's writing about the difference between the whites and the blacks and this that, and the other. He's just becoming a problem. But they started with the homosexuality. So I felt
yeah.
red flag as well, that the FBI would go so much as to be so demeaning on the character of somebody and not necessarily what they did. Even at 1955, I can't believe I'm saying. I can't believe. Yeah.
Exactly. What I loved about this was Birmingham was on Mars.
Yeah.
That quote, so because people still think that. People still think that these riots and these one-off killings of black people, it's on a different planet. It's like that can't be us. That's not real.
Right.
That's on television. That's that they kind of when you see so much violence in TVs and movies, they think that it can't happen to their next door neighbor. So
Right.
that was spot on right there. White oppressors, love for the disarming of the Negro and for us to turn the other cheek. That was more of a Malcolm X thing. White people will love you as long as you're not, if you're disarmed. So as long as you're not a threat and you're willing to turn the other cheek, which is how we got to where we're at right now. I'm not trying to put down the King legacy, but it's like because we kept turning the other cheek, it's like now we're bruised. We're being punched in the face. I live in Chicago, but it's still segregated. You're still calling the police on me. So I'm not saying be like Malcolm X, but I am saying that we needed to do something else differently.
Yeah.
I I liked MLK versus X, love of nonviolence towards evil versus the modern Uncle Tom. And I thought it was interesting that none of them, Medgar Evers, MLK, or X, made it past the age of 40. It's like wow. And I thought they were way older. I thought they were already 40s in their 50s or whatever, but no, they weren't even 40 years old and assassinated.
Yeah.
Um, I discussed this earlier. You're segregated from the school door. Um, no knowledge of how the Negro lives, and you don't know the other side because you don't want to know.
Yeah.
Oh, that was powerful. Bobby Kennedy and Lorraine Hainsbury, I don't know who that is. When they had that meeting of having the moral commitment, he was disgusted and she came up dead later. That kind of talks into the Kennedys and how their mob ties and how they kind of got their way. And this
Let
was
me ask
all
you
about
this. Did you see what it said in the newspaper of how she died?
no. What did it say?
It said of cancer.
Whoa.
Yep. That was even more telling. I caught that while I think it was fading in, and I saw it really quick, and it said, yeah, shortly died thereafter. She was 34, died of cancer. So
Wow.
it even more
Yeah.
deep.
Right.
Oh, of cancer. What?
So
Wow.
now you writing fake news? Fake news? Okay, cool,
You don't know you have
interesting.
cancer?
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah. Okay.
And then this next scene, I like that the root of hatred. The root of hatred for Black people is rage because we're upset. We're being bullied this whole time, and the root of hatred for white people is terror. You don't know how we're going to react because we're so upset. They don't know how we're going to retaliate towards them. Um, I thought it was interesting the sexuality in the films in the 1960s. There were none, which is different from now because now Black women are over sexualized
Right.
and Black men are still have that stereotype of being well endowed. And they're always with their shirts off and sexy or whatever. So it's definitely changed. And now it's kind of overcompensating for that. Um, it's safer to walk alone. He was talking about the blonde girl, than it was with James Baldwin, and that is the truth because she would have gotten beaten up just being with James Baldwin because that's how the 50s and 60s were because
Right.
they're like anybody could get it. It
Yeah.
don't matter white, black. You're with a black person, you're getting beat up. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I talked about selling of the Negro that there's 15 billion to spend, and this country still fails to realize that we built black people built this country because it was off of cheap labor, free or cheap labor, and they're still doing that off of the prison systems, so put some respect on our names. Um, Robert Kennedy said in 40 years we will have a Negro president, and James Baldwin was like, okay, we've been here for over 400 years, and if you're good, then you'll become president.
You could be
So
president.
could be president
Could be
if
president.
you're
And I
good.
thought it was telling that the barbershop owner was the guy that said, Robert Kennedy, he just got here.
Mm,
But you go talk about us. We've been here 400 years. You talked about in 40 years, we should have a Negro president. Okay. Took a little,
which did happen. Which
yeah,
did
it happened.
happen.
It happened. Took a little bit longer, but it happened.
Right. And it's like, okay, like was this already set in motion just to show that no longer a racist country? Like,
Right.
okay, whatever.
In
Um,
40 years.
exactly. What stood out to me was well, I would say because even in 40 years, I didn't even know about this until I was watching old episodes of A Different World about Jesse Jackson running for president. That was very interesting. But I guess if he would have won, that would have been that 40-year mark. But whatever.
Yeah.
Um, artists becoming activists, and people, forgive me, sorry, people get on Cardi B, people get on Beyonce, they get on all these celebrities for being activists, but it didn't start with them. It started with even us, Sammy Davis Jr. and Harry Belafonte, Sidney Poitier, and Marlon Brando. So this has always been a theme. So it surprises me that people like Cardi B are getting flack for it. So as an artist yourself, what do you think about artists being activists? Should they quote unquote stay in their lane and play basketball like they told LeBron?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I say use your platform responsibly.
Mm,
So I wouldn't go out there, and I mean I'm an artist, but I mean I keep my artistry local for the most part. Um, but you have a platform. Everybody has a platform, whether it's a small soapbox or you're standing
mm,
on stage somewhere or you're dribbling a basketball. I always hate to hear like just shut up and dribble, like things like that, because it just takes us back that much further. And there could be
mm.
oh rah rah this is just words and yeah it's more than words. That's a being like that comes out of somebody's soul to tell somebody to shut up and dribble.
It does.
Mouth, I got thoughts, I got an opinion, and he's a very opinionated man. So I feel like that as artists, you still have voices. You have some of the most magical voices because you are an artist. You have developed your craft. So you are that much more focused than somebody that just sits behind a computer and types away underneath a moniker that could be somebody completely different. So I feel like artists should be able to stand up, voice their opinion, and people at least take it as an opinion.
Mm, I like that.
Take it as Bible or take it as gospel, I should say. Take it as an opinion and then just do it what you meant.
Yes. I do want to talk about the lack of sincerity in the word sorry, and then how artists like John Wayne didn't need to grow up, and I think what he was saying by that is the fact that John Wayne didn't have to be apologetic for being quote unquote racist because he's killing the Indians, he's taking all these acting roles and so forth, but he didn't need to change because it was acceptable to be that way. So I thought that was good. I thought that if you're black, you're criminal, and we want to make an example of you so that no one else can be a criminal and you can't get away with shit.
Yeah.
And then the goal of white people will be having the white picket fence, a wife and kids. That's the American dream. And then, um, and then he said, I don't know if such and such hates me, but I do know that I'm in the ghetto. I don't know. he was like, I don't know if a real estate agent hates me, but I know that I'm in a ghetto. I don't know if such and such hate me, but I have poor textbooks and poor schools and so forth. And I love that scene because it's like, well, these people aren't telling me to my face anymore that they hate me. However, they're acting in a certain way because this is how they're treating me. It's supposed to be separate but equal, which is fine. Separate but equal is fine because you do it with children. If you have twin children, you're going to give them separate things and you're going to give them equal things. But what you're not going to do is, I'm going to give you this, and you're and I'm going to give you this, and you're and I'm going to insult you, and I'm going to be racist towards you. That's not separate but equal, so, and that's where the racism comes in, and I never understood the racism part of it. um and then there's I like the two levels of experience: innocence of Doris Day, and then denial like Ray Charles. So I love that element of that as well. um so yeah, I have the pictures of Doris Day, and how, she has these diamonds and blonde hair and soft colors to make her look more angelic. And then yeah, Billy D. Williams. I would have liked to have heard from Billy D. Williams. That would have been a nice little touch, or Harry Belafonte, because they knew James Baldwin, and they knew all these civil rights leaders. So that would have been nice. And then I like how they changed it from, instead of "I am not your Negro, I am not your nigger." And why the word nigger? Why did you invent that word? So to go into what we like and what we didn't like. Oh no, I hold on. Oh, okay. I liked switching back and forth between modern now and then. I like that it showed very jarring images of the lynchings and so forth, and the bug-eyedness. I like that aspect of it. I liked how it was smart, and it made me feel smart. Um, and then what I think it could have changed, I think it needed more on Medgar to learn more about what he did. All they said is like he was part of the NAACP and he was investigating a murder, but they didn't give much on his life story. It doesn't say what we're fighting for, but it says how in our viewpoints. And then the end result. I want to know why it was never finished, because he didn't die until the 80s, and he started this in 79. So I would like to know why. And then, like I said, I think they could have added interviews from his friends, like Billy D or Harry Belafonte. So, what did you like and what did you dislike about this film?
I liked that. First and foremost, I give kudos to Samuel L. Jackson for the narration.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was him until the
I did
end.
not know it was him at first. It was one point in time throughout the movie that he says something, and he says it in a way that is real distinctive, and it was like,
Mm.
that's Samuel L. Jackson. And then after that, it clicked like, oh, that's Samuel L. Jackson. Hey, it was like perfect, because you're always waiting for that motherfucker. Like you're waiting for to come out, and it didn't, and it was almost refreshing. Although I would have liked to hear that at the very end, if he would have just threw it in, I would have been mad.
He did in the Q&A. I when I saw
Okay,
this film, they had a Q&A after, and he was there. And so
yeah,
that's a picture, that's him in the middle. I have video of it, but he was cursing up the storm then. But yeah.
good. I mean, that's him. Even the commercial that just dropped with him and John Travolta, and he was at Santa, and he was asking him, "Are you on the good list?" And he said, "Is your language on the good list?" or whatever he said. He was referring to him cussing all the time. That's how we know Samuel. But I did like his narration. I thought it was very jarring to hear the story of James Baldwin through the voice of Samuel L. Jackson. It almost sounded like that could have been James Baldwin, and you would have believed
Yeah.
that was his voice. So I thought that was great. I do agree with the jarring images, although I'm tired of seeing the lynchings. Um,
Mm,
I've never seen the actual like glass coffins of our leaders of the community.
hmm
Mecker, of course, I didn't know him, so obviously I didn't know of his funeral or how he died underneath the carport and all of that stuff. So It was, I felt like the storyline, and most importantly, there was the Dick Cavett show in 1968. They started out with it, and then they sprinkled it, I think, twice, and then they closed with it. And I
Yeah.
great because it was almost like if you didn't know who James Baldwin was before this point, like you knew really quick. And he didn't even get started in how he went in. And he went in at the convention. He went in on the TV show towards the end when the gentleman from Harvard or wherever he came from came out. He let him have it.
Yeah. I think it was
Yeah.
Yale.
Yep, that's right. So he, I mean, that was one of the most powerful speeches that I took away from, and it was crazy that it was so far long ago. Going back to the university debate, like he was out there in a sea of white people sitting around
Mm.
him, and the unthinkable happened. They stood and ovaded him. Like, how would
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that came at that point in time with a group that big. That's going back to the company that you sit around. Like you got to know that if they gonna stand up, I'm gonna stand up too. Um, the oh, what was it? I'm trying to get to it. It was the show. Uh, when he started going in, he was talking to the professor, and he said, "I don't understand how you're trying to sell me this belief on this America that I'm supposed to believe that I live in, but I know the school that y'all tell me that my kids got to go to. I know the
Yeah.
textbooks that y'all give me. I know the housing department that I live, or the housing unit that I live in, because that's where y'all lobbyists keep me." Like he went
Yeah.
so far in on that guy to the point where towards the end he was I feel like he said, okay. I don't know exactly what he said, but it was like at that point that you would have been like, damn, James, like chill. No, he was a dog and he was going, and he went in on them. And I appreciated about that, because when you read the title, I'm Not Your Negro, that's powerful.
That is powerful. That
Colors
is.
play on your perception of a title. Red is always that gritty or that murderous, or something's gonna happen. And you see the depths of something happening in real life. Like this was real life. This wasn't just a made up movie. So to see that going back and forth between the then and the now, and just how much it's still related, and it flowed. It didn't seem like you went from the 50s to the 2000s, because that could have been a vast difference. Back
Yeah.
in the 80s, back in the 90s, I'm looking at the Jetsons like, when we about to get this flying car? We still ain't
And
got
there
it.
was right in this talking robot. We have talking robots, but yeah,
Yeah,
agreed.
we don't have them. There are talking robots. They ain't no flying car.
Siri.
Yeah, but yeah. So I agree with this. I would have liked to see more on Medgar, because again, I learned about Malcolm X like most of us. We didn't learn it on the scale that we should have learned about Malcolm X, but I mean, we know what that means. We learned about Martin Luther King Jr. He was praised. He was plastered all over the hallways because he was
Oh
a,
yeah.
it was like, no, just don't fight, just love them. Like, we'll take the fight, we'll take them beating us up. We just got to show them love. And then Malcolm X is over here like, what the hell are you talking about? So they like, no, we're not about to teach them about Malcolm X. So yeah,
Exactly.
I would have liked to learn about a little bit more about Medgar. I would, of course, like why he was so important, and not to demean him in any way at all, but just why. Like I never got that. I got the trip in the very beginning. I got he was writing a story, but why was he so big that somebody sniped him out at his crib? Like
Mm.
that's crazy.
Right,
Uh,
and I would have liked to also seen a little bit more about. Granted, it was about those three. I would like to see, even with these two films, about the Black Panthers, because this is their time. And thankfully, there's a movie that called Black Panthers, but there's so much about the civil rights movement that is not talked about. And
yeah,
um, and then even with talking about Martin Luther King, they always forget the doctor. And I always thought
yeah,
because they forgot
yeah,
the doctor, I thought it was
yeah,
like a kind of a slang thing, like Dr. Dre or Doctor. whatever, like a rap name. But I didn't know that he actually went to college and he actually got his doctorate in what theological so something advanced. It was like so advanced that I don't even remember what it meant. I looked it up and I'm like, I don't even know what this means. But yeah,
Was that
they don't
like preacher, whatever a preacher gets?
something like that. But it's so complex that it wasn't like, oh, he's a doctor of philosophy. It wasn't that easy. That's all I'm trying to say. But it was like, yeah, he was a doctor, but they don't put that respect on his name. They just say MLK. No, put the doctor in front of it because he actually went to college. And
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
um Last thing I'll say about this, and then we'll rate it, is that I met Harry Belafonte over on the left. That's when he spoke on MLK Day at Northwestern University. And then, long story short, me and my friend, we stuck around after and got his autograph. So over to the right, well, my friend, she froze. Like we walked up to him and she just stood there like frozen, like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm meeting him. But walked up to him and I got his autograph. So it's him and Dorothy Dandruff. That's his signature right there. So that's a cute little story of my
All right.
meeting this. But let's go ahead, let's rate this. A 5. I gave this a 5. Wait, did I give it a 5? Yeah, I gave it a 5. What did you rate it?
Oh yeah, I would definitely give it a 5. Like I
Yeah.
said, this wasn't the first time that I watched it, but this obviously for this I was taking notes. I'm glad I did because I got a lot of like great sayings from James Baldwin. Um, so I'm able to reflect back on there and really reflect back on time because, like I said, we didn't really learn about this. So when we are in these discussions about what really happened with Mecker, what really happened with James Baldwin, like you said, this wasn't a complete story. Why wasn't it complete? What are the
Mhm.
stories that are out there? Somebody else was, one of my fraternity brothers was telling me about something that I needed to read up on with him because I was saying that I was researching James Baldwin for this. And he had recommended something else. So it's just interesting to see what else he has out there because he says some powerful stuff. And for it to be back in the day like that and him to be so smart and so courageous,
Yeah.
stand up in front of the groups of the white people and the strongest of the white people, knowing that they could have pulled his card at any moment. That TV show, he was ready for it. He
He
was
was ready. Give me all the smoke. Give me all the
all the
smoke.
smoke, literally, because I'm gonna sit here and smoke my cigarette right in front of you while I'm shitting on your message. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm glad my wife hasn't watched it yet, so I have another excuse to watch it again.
Yes, awesome. Now, moving on to television. Once again, to remind everyone, it is civil rights. So, this episode of A Different World, season 5, episode 14, called The Crates in the Cradle. I don't know what that means, but yes. Here's some information about the show in general. It's created by Bill Cosby and Debbie Allen. It is a spinoff of The Cosby Show because this is technically season 1 is about Denise going off to college, and then Debbie Allen took over season 2. Lisa left the show, went back to the Cosby Show, and they just kept on with A Different World, and I'm glad they did. And the biggest criticism was the fact that it didn't really represent college life or HBCU life. So I'm glad that they continued on with it. Came out in 1987, but this episode was in 92 because it's season 5. It stars Kadeem Harrison, Jasmine Guy, Cree Summer, and in this episode, we have guest Dean Cain, which is so funny because Dean Cain is a Trump supporter.
Hmm.
So yeah, so this wasn't, his acting was
Boo-hoo.
a little his acting was a little bit too spot on. I'm like, you a little too into this, but yeah, he's a Trump supporter. Superman is a Trump supporter. Um, Overall, it's been nominated for 3 Emmys
No,
and
no, we
7.
can't say that. We can't say that.
What?
My line name is Clark Kent.
Wait, what?
My line name is Clark Kent. So Dean Cain is a Trump supporter, not Superman. You go kick rock.
Fine, Dean Cain, not Superman. Okay, fine. Fine,
Thank you.
fine. All right. It was nominated for 3 Emmys, and that includes Whoopi Goldberg. when she was a professor. I forgot what season it was. That I think that was the episode that Gina from Martin Tisha Campbell, she was on that episode. But yeah, Whoopi Goldberg got nominated for an Emmy, of course. And then Diane Carroll, of course, Diane Carroll. She's so amazing as Whitley's mother that doesn't surprise me at all. Hold on. So trivia. I didn't have much time for trivia, so I just did like one fact. Alfonso Ribeiro. I probably said that wrong. So basically, Carlton from the Fresh Prince of Bel Air. He was supposed to be reprise his role as Zach Duncan, but he chose to do Fresh Prince of Bel Air instead. So did you happen to know that at
Huh.
all?
No, that's very cool. I honestly, I will give this tidbit. I watched A Different World, but I didn't watch A Different World. So
What?
yeah, I do remember this episode though. Like I was telling you, like it's crazy that you remember certain things about the episode. I remembered him being out in the car and fighting on the car. I didn't know it was like three different versions of the fight on the car. So
Mm.
like, oh, this is cool. Now I mean, see, I didn't watch it like that. Kanye's reference to Cree Summer. It's a different world like Cree Summers. I didn't know what he was talking about. So it was like, oh, that's cool. Now I know who Cree Summer is. So I feel embarrassed that I'm even saying this, but whatever. A lot of things came together. So it is cool that we saw that cast flourish and we saw
Mm.
Fonzo go to Fresh Prince and obviously flourish in ways that he couldn't have imagined either. So that's very cool.
Watch the show. Because
Oh
Jada
yeah.
Pinkett. Oh wait. So you said you watched it, but not really. I think you should binge watch it from season one all the way through season six. Technically, you don't really have to watch season one because season one is very different from season two. That's why it's completely contrasting. But I would watch it from beginning to end, binge watch it because I just did. I just binge watched this over the summer and I loved every second of it. And I see why it was canceled on that sixth season because I don't know where it was going on the sixth season, but
Yeah,
it
that's
was
unfortunate, man.
too,
Yeah,
yeah.
when places start going, they start going different places. That was unfortunate. I unfortunately don't have time to binge watch. It was nice seeing this episode. So if you have any other referrals of episodes, I'll definitely watch them. But Netflix and Disney Plus runs this household. So
That's fair.
sorry.
That's fair. And this is on Amazon. Yeah, but that's fair.
Oh well, no,
Now,
that's fair too because I didn't know that my TV. I'm in my son's playroom. I didn't know his TV had Amazon TV, and we have Prime, so now we got Amazon TV in here. So yeah, I'll be able to watch it on an actual screen and some other things as well. So that's very cool.
cool. Now, since I watched this on my phone, I couldn't get many pictures. So this is from IMDb. So, but because it makes sense anyway because the whole episode was like the same day,
Yeah,
so it worked out in my favor. The bottom left is when they leave the campus security place. The middle picture is the three white guys. Dean Kane is the one with the Letterman jacket. So the character names are Eddie, JC, and Rick. And then there's the fight scene. Fight scene. So this is how it starts. The the episode opens up with the one with the leather jacket, JC, the really racist one. He was like, my dad's lawyers will have a field day with this. He works at a security bank. So already you're throwing around your power. I'm
right.
white and I'm throwing around my power. I have a lawyer and this is where he works for. Um, then they're being racist by saying, "Oh, I hate it when they butcher the anthem." That was still JC being racist.
Yeah,
Um, but Ron was also racist too, because Ron went up to the Native American and was like, "Oh, you're a scalper." He's like, "Oh, don't say anything like that, because that's a racist term for Native Americans, because he used to scalp heads." And then Ron was like, "I bet you grew up on a reservation," and he's like, "I guess you grew up on the projects." So he could take it, you could give it, you could take it. So I respected that.
yeah,
Um, let's see how it started was the fact that, well, I think Dean Cain was like, Hillman sucks, doing that whole team rivalry thing, which is expected.
yeah.
And but they didn't expect was for Ron to come back and put it back into their face. So that's how it really kicked off. Because I guess they would have like, oh no, you guys suck, and then walked away. But no, Ron was like, no, a real hip dude. So he went at their ethnicity versus going at their team. So that's
Right.
kind of how it all went down. And then that's
Right.
when he's like, this guy is bothering me. And then
Right.
they made the bet, and then he keeps trying to insult him, and Ron was like, can I write these down? Which is hilarious. But
Yeah, that
yeah,
was fun.
yeah. And then where it goes left is the fact that after the game, he dropped the money. The really racist JC, he dropped the money instead of handing it to him. And then Ron reciprocated again because anyone else would have just took the money and hushed back in the day. But Ron was like, I guess you should have got more brothers on your team. And that Rick was ready to go, was like, let it go. But then Dean Kane, Eddie was like, no, what are you saying? Whites can't play as good as blacks. So before I go on, what do you have to add from everything that I just said so far?
Yeah, I I think it really kicked off that you really knew where this story was coming when he said, "I hate it when they butcher the anthem."
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is about to turn into something bad. I didn't necessarily take away, and that could be my ignorance, that they were white. I felt like during the episode, specifically when they were in the jail cell, they was like they could have been being sarcastic, but they were saying where their parents were from. And I
Mm.
it was places outside of Europe. I could have been wrong, but yeah, I mean, it just looked like they had different ethnicities to them.
Yeah.
It could be different. I mean, but at the same token, it was still all about racism, and
Yeah.
could have shown a different dynamic. How it's not just white people that's racist with black people. It's there black people racist with Native Americans. Like there was a different dynamic in different aspects to it. But going back to the different sequences, it was where it went left, lying to the cops, and it was already a bad situation where you could have came out on top, but because you lied and made it seem like, oh, you was this total innocent when sometimes we are the instigator, it turned real bad for him, and it
Yeah.
in a different way because it triggered something differently from him. But yeah, I saw the same where yeah, you dropping the money, he spit back at him. You say where everybody else would have walked away. I don't know about everybody else. I probably would have said some shit too. Oh, you gonna drop my money? Oh, you sore loser. All right, that's what's up. It's cool. I'll pick it up. I'll go about my way. I won my bet.
But that's still different though. That addresses the situation. Ron went at the ethnicity.
Right.
That's the difference. Because I think
Right.
most people wouldn't have went the route of, oh yeah, I see what you did there, whatever. But Ron,
Yeah.
other people wouldn't have went at the ethnicities. That's the difference between the insults. Because this is the second time he went at the ethnicity because they went at the it. So yeah, that's the difference.
Yeah. Like we both gonna be at this low level instead of somebody coming high. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. And what I liked about the story is like both parties were innocent, and it was so hilarious.
yeah,
When they were telling their stories, I thought that was really great. And they see each other as racist because in Ron's version they were like overly racist, and then in Eddie's version, like Dwayne had like a hoodie and some black glasses, and then Ron had a gold chain and stuff like that. So yeah, they both played up the stereotype, and that's how it is. Like when people tell us racist story, their version is gonna be like this over caricature of what happened. I like the fact that they use Whitley as a trigger, and then Eddie being racist, saying that's a black girl worth doing. He said worth doing, and I thought that was an emphasis on that. And then that's when the truth comes out. You know how they are. They have no respect. All they do is sit on their butt and complain. That's what white people think about us still to this day.
yeah,
Um and then the quotas. I'm not in the Ivy League where I belong. And then I like when Ron, because this is a good jab back. Ron was like, "Y'all had quotas for centuries, legacies, restricted country clubs, the law. That's
Yeah.
perfect because it's true and it's still till to this day.
Yeah.
And then Eddie was like, "Well, my grandfather came to this country with nothing. He didn't know the language, but he made it. Why can't you guys do the same?" It's like that's an ignorant comment because you're in college and
Yeah.
you're ignorant. That's what I liked about this because it's like we have access to the same classes. It's not like they said only black people can take a black world study classes. You refuse to learn about my ethnicity and learn about us or be around us, and you're coming off with this, why can't you do the same? Because he's a senior. That's another thing too. He's not just some freshman 18-year-old. He's 21, 22 plus or whatever saying this. So that lets me know that there's these, you could be college educated and still ignorant. I like that. And then of course Dwayne comes back with, my father built this country, fought wars for it. And you can't even sit down and get a cup of coffee, because you're gonna get some type of racism. And then he
Yeah.
can't catch a cab. And it's like, no matter how many degrees I have, you still see me as another nigger.
Yeah.
So, as a black man, Lawrence, tell me your thoughts. Go ahead.
So first, I would like to, and I'll keep this short, go back to this point that you have up here, this bullet, which stood out to me, that Ron said that your quotas for the centuries were restricted country clubs. And that hit
Mhm.
me because I was a caddy for 8 years at Olympia
Oh,
Field,
yeah.
and you saw firsthand, like I knew golf, not like I appreciate it now, I play now and all of that, but back then it was like that starting job. Like I wanted stuff. My parents was like, all right, you about to start working, we'll find you a place. And somebody told me about caddying, so I went, and I didn't really understand it early on, but you saw the difference in how they treated us out on the golf course as opposed to how they treated the white caddies, specifically
Mm.
girl caddies. And I mean, obviously, we understand why that is with old rich white men. They want to see the young white ladies that are out there, and they would pay considerably more than even their white male counterparts. So we're not
Wow.
about what we made. Like there were times where, I mean, yeah, I've been called out my name. I wouldn't say it was a lot. I say I heard nigger probably 2 or 3 times out on that country club. But Ron has said y'all had them quotas restricting in the country clubs, but you're not restricting us to work for you.
Ooh.
You oh, we had black caddies. We was the best caddies there. You can talk about your point system all you wanted to, but knowing our role, we knew we had to work that much harder. And we
Mm.
it out on that golf course. Still to this day, there are black caddies that I caddy with that still caddy, and they're phenomenal caddies. One in particular caddy for President Obama when he came to Chicago. So we're restricted at the country club, but not at the caddy level. And I say all that to say, going back to the long walk home, when the two gentlemen were walking, two brothers were walking into the council versus the Klan conversation, and they were going to the council meeting, the Confederate council meeting. Uh,
Mhm.
the brother said, if these niggers keep pushing the way they are, we'll get them off the course for good. They keep pushing how they are, that we'll get them off the course. And the brother was like, no, you know what? I want them on the course. That the best caddy that I ever had was a nigger.
Mm.
And he said that walking into the Confederate room, and you see the Confederate flag, and it's like that was a powerful statement. In my head, it's like, because I knew that was true. We was outworking other caddies, and it was just this whole different level of the status that we saw. Everybody saw Caddyshack. You saw how the country club
I
was.
didn't. I never saw Caddyshack.
I put that on your list. You should be ashamed of yourself. No,
Yes.
in all honesty, you'll thoroughly enjoy it. It's obviously a comedy, but a lot of the aspects that are built into this comedy happen out on the golf course. Specifically, the way that caddies are treated, the way the grounds crew is treated. You'll see how black people are treated in the movies, and I mean, there is a truth to that. We have evolved, but I mean, not really when it comes to golf. I want to say, what is the? Oh, I should know this. The oh, the big tournament, the Masters tournament. I
Not the I was just about to say the US Open, but that's
No,
tennis.
it's the Masters tournament, but I can't, for the life of me, I can't think of the golf course. Anyway, it'll come to me and I'll blurt it out just like that. But that golf course in particular did not allow for women to be members for years. And I want to say
Wow.
if they are members or they do have the opportunity for membership, it has only happened as of recently.
Wow.
See how restrictive these country clubs were, but at the caddy level, at the groundskeeper level, you had some of the best workers. And that's why I say I just see racism evolve from these different movies because now I see it at my level. So when I'm out shouting Black Lives Matter and all of this stuff, and they're like, "Well, you didn't know any slaves and this, that, and the other." Hell, I could call myself a slave. I wouldn't
Mm,
say that like Kanye and be like, "Oh, this is about slaves," but I'm just saying, like you were in that mentality that you had to work harder, and you weren't paid like your counterparts. You heard about them and how much they made at these tournaments, and it was just like, I didn't make that. I was out there, but
right.
it's just like you was.
And then the thing is, it's more than just money because you're getting a chance to network and
Yeah.
you're learning
Oh yeah.
information and yeah,
Yeah.
like, oh, let me introduce you to my caddy. He
Yeah.
caddied for me and he does a great job. So I'm gonna introduce you and they're gonna give you tidbits and they're gonna network and you're gonna move up. That's how that fucking works. Because I see that in the entertainment industry too.
Yeah.
Because you could start off in the entry level. However, let me introduce you to this person and this person and this
Yeah.
person and that person. And I saw it and it had I in fact it happened to me one time and I'm like I saw someone else get a job and I'm like we work the same job. So how did and I knew you longer. So how did you get the job and I didn't? And
Yeah.
I wasn't even offered that. So yeah. Um to go on, I would say that what I loved about this episode is that it had a strong plot and dialogue, passionate acting. Like Dwayne really
Yeah.
went there.
Yeah. He was in
Dwayne was
that
like,
role.
yeah, when they were fighting, he was like,
Yeah.
"You get some more Duke." I'm like, okay, okay. I like that there was no resolution because this isn't a TV show where everything gets. I mean, it's racism. You're not gonna solve that in 30 minutes. Like, oh, yay, like hugs or whatever. I love that. I like
I
that
felt
we.
like there wasn't a resolution. I felt okay. Going back to your 30-minute statement, I feel like that resolution would have came at the end of the season if they would have had a resolution. They should have. They would have sprinkled in a little bit of him going back to prison or jail, a little bit of the group going back to jail every other episode or something like that. The fact that they went back out there and they finished the word nigger on his car, that to me just amplified the fear that some white people um, try to inflict on who they feel is inferior, just so you know I got you.
Yeah,
Just did in that jail cell. Yeah, you tried to come at me, but I still got the upper hand. And you know what? I'm about to show you how much more of the upper hand I got, or I think I got, by spray painting the rest of the word on your car. Now drive home, nigger.
yeah. Because they only said "in I," so the fact that
Yep.
someone else and this was long after the game because it happened the game because they left before the end of the fourth quarter. So the fact
Yeah.
that they were so upset, someone else was like, you know, I'm going to finish this word. But yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I liked being able to see both sides and hear a certain standpoint. I liked that they got checked by the police officer because the police officer was like, I could be a member of the Klan, but you don't know that I could have marched with Dr. Martin Luther King. You don't know that.
Yeah. You don't know.
Exactly. It showed racism on a different scale because the average white person isn't going to think that they're racist, but they also don't realize that racism is on a scale. You have your JCs, you have your Eddies, you have your Ricks, and then you have your instigators like
Yeah.
Ron.
Yeah.
but it's different levels to that shit. You
Yeah.
may not be a clan member, but you might tell some jokes that are still racist. But yeah, um,
Going back
I
to that really quick, yeah, even that Ron piece, it's like, yeah, that instigation and throwing them, and you're not directing it at them. You are directing it at them, but indirectly, because you're saying
yeah,
you should have had more brothers on your team. Now you're insinuating, I'm already swirling in my head that I'm mad that I just paid you whatever I paid you, but now you just gave me extra fuel to this fire.
yeah,
Going on the different scale, I don't know what the guy's name is that really came out at the end and was like, no, I grew up around black people. This ain't me.
Rick,
Rick, even his racism is bleeding in there because
yeah,
you are at a point where you can do something about this and you don't. All the way up to the point where I would have threw that. I mean, not me, because I wouldn't have been in that situation anyway, but you could have took that spray can and threw it the opposite direction.
but you handed it to
You handed it to
you
him. You are implicit with what just occurred. So yeah, you didn't want it to happen, but you could have stopped it. That's what we're saying today. Isn't maybe not stopping it, but talk about it. Say, oh no, this is wrong right here. Going back to the conversation when I said you got to know the company that you're in, because I could say, oh, these niggers and this that, and the other, and this white people. So they're like, what are you talking about? We're not doing that up in here. He could have been that person. He
yeah.
stopped it, and he could have put a stop to it, or at least tried to put a stop to it, or told Ron to get the hell out of here. They about to be on that crazy shit, but he didn't. So you're right. There was some racism on different levels, which I feel like are blinders, of course, with everything else, with some white folks that don't really understand that we see different layers of racism damn near on a regular basis.
Right, because if there's different levels of sexism, why can't there be different levels of racism? It's not an all or nothing. It's not you're either a Klan member or not. That's not no. Please notice that there's different racism, and what you can do to change it is educate yourself, be around more black people, and so forth. But yeah, going back to the TV show, I like that. Yeah, like I said, how they're all in the wrong. So for this episode, I rate it a 5. Thought it was excellent. Not much. I had nothing that it could have changed, so it was perfect for
Yeah,
me.
and I don't know this for a fact because I just told you that I watched way more than Fresh Prince than I did this, but Fresh Prince was filmed in front of a live studio audience. I feel like this was too.
I think so.
It
I
seemed like
don't
it.
know because of the
It didn't
laughter.
seem like there was much cut in the cameras.
Mm.
Like even in the fight scene in the jail cell, it felt like he was on his ass that quick, right when he said it. But then you seen it from two different camera angles, so it almost seemed like it was that like a Fresh Prince type deal where they got 6, 7 cameras out there, and they're just flowing throughout a scene. Because even with the car scene, when they walked behind the bushes, it almost seemed like the stadium was a backdrop. It was a strategically placed backdrop. It didn't look real, but it
Oh
looked like
yeah.
it could have been a sound stage or a live studio audience or something like that, but it looked like it was live. I say all that to say I'll give it a 5. It the acting could have been better, but the fact,
What? I love the acting.
yeah, yeah, I could say it was really good. I feel like it was cheesy at points. It could have just been the time. Like,
Mm.
I don't really find most of Fresh Prince cheesy, but it has some cheesy moments to where it was like, oh, okay. But the fact that they were filming live took it over the top because I mean that's a totally different way. I mean you're spewing out your feelings and your acting skills on cue in front of a studio audience. Like they could laugh at an inappropriate moment and just break character, and I would
Mm.
retain that for a 5 too, just because you're being real, but then you have to snap back in a role and then become yourself again. So yeah, that was a
I
good episode.
what have you ever seen a filming of a TV show and as have you ever been an audience member in front of a
No,
live studio? Okay,
no.
I have, and they do that take a million times. And
Yeah.
if they don't get the right reaction from us, the audience member, the writers are there on set and they'll rewrite the scene, and we're stuck there for like it takes about 4 or 5 hours. We're sitting there for 4 or 5 hours. They feed us and everything. However, if they do it in front of a live studio audience, they want to make sure that it's the right reaction. And if it's an inappropriate reaction, they'll refilm it again. They'll tell us not to say anything and so forth. So yeah, just an
That's
FYI.
crazy. I knew it wasn't like live all the way through, but I didn't know that at all. 4 or 5 hours. I did know like your lottery shows, and like we got a lottery show out here that they'll film a live studio audience and they'll call you out of the audience to play the lottery right then and there. Um, uh,
Hmm.
I knew that would take like 4 or 5 hours because, like you said, they wanted the right reactions. So that's why it sounds so fake, or is that just add in?
No, those are real. Like when the audience, a laugh track is fake, but a live studio audience, if a laughter is too loud, they could turn it down. They could turn the mic because there's microphones in front of us.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, they're all around us. They're in front of us. They're below us.
Yeah.
They want to make sure it's realistic. So
They
yeah,
captured. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
that's cool enough.
yeah.
All right.
Now, moving on to Dear White People. So
Yeah, buddy.
yes, just as a reminder, this is the TV show and not the film. But it is for my understanding, it is the continuation of the film because I've seen the film and it picks up where the film left. The ending scene of the film was the blackface party. So when opening up this TV show, it starts at the blackface party. However, there's some storylines that were weird that it evolved in the movie, but it started over again in the TV show. So that's why it's a little bit confusing. But going to the trivia, it's on Netflix. Came out in 2017. The film came out in 2014. The creator is Justin Simeon. He did both the film and the TV show. So kudos for him for that. It stars Logan Browning, Brandon P. Bell, he was in the film. Deron Horton, and narrator is Juan Carlo Esposito. I love Juan Carlo. He's been in everything since school days. I love him since school days. Um, 32 nominations, including NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Writing, which is Justin Simeon's because he wrote it, and it had 5 wins. Are you surprised at that by looking at the trivia? I mean, looking at the pilot.
Oh no. I mean, if this, and I see that. How many seasons is it now?
4. This
Yeah.
year, 21 will be for season 4.
Yeah. So I mean, and to be all fair for those that are watching, I have not seen the movie, nor had I seen the show prior to today. Literally an hour before we jumped on here. So obviously, it was one of the most memorable ones because it was the last one that I watched. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I felt like all pilots take you through not a lot, but a lot more than you would get in a regular episode. There's been
Mm.
shows that I've seen keep up with the pilot. Um, Designated Survivor. That was a show that I really like from the pilot. It was just like it kept moving. You saw why it was canceled. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely got old. But I would say throughout at least that first, second season, it really held. So I will say off of this pilot alone, I was very interested in continuing on, and I will catch up to these seasons.
Awesome. I as a FYI, I did have an issue with season 3. Like I'm struggling to get through season 3 because
Dear
to
white people.
me, yeah, for Dear White People, the story is going in a different direction and it's just falling off for me, but we can do a follow-up later. But as far as trivia goes, Sam's Headboard, which is the lead actress, is the same as Nola Darling in Spike Lee's 1986 film She's Gotta Have It. I just saw She's Gotta Have It like over the summer, and then I started watching the TV show. So That's pretty cool. They're both Netflix shows. She's Gotta Have It is on Netflix, so I see the similarity. But yeah, her headboard is the same shape and style, and they both hold candles as well. Bell and Marquise Richardson are the only two actors of the original movie that are reprising their regular roles as Troy Fairbanks and Reggie Green, respectively. Brandon Alter and Nia Javier also reprised their roles as George and Kelsey, but Brandon did as a guest appearance, and Nia isn't a regular. So yes, basically, long story short, they came from the movie. That's basically it. And just like I couldn't really take pictures for on the Amazon, I couldn't do it for Netflix either through a screenshot. So I'm pissed at that. But these are from IMDb. Over to the left, that is the lead actress. Over to the right with the three people. The one on the left, the guy, he was in the film, and I don't remember seeing her in the film. And then this was the bottom with the guy with the hat. That's the pilot episode. So I like the fact that the pilot opens up with James Baldwin quote. Wasn't
Yep.
expecting that. Glad it tied in together with this theme.
Yep.
The black face party. Now when you watch the film, they will do real time, and they will show in real life what other universities, because this is a fictional film, it's not a documentary. And even this TV show is a fictional university, but in the film, the ending credits, they show real fraternity parties, sorority parties of racist parties that are going on behind our backs. So they have a Hispanic party where they're all wearing sombreros and so forth, and blackface parties and all that other good shit. So it's still going on even to this day. Um, I like having the blackface party just to show that y'all are still racist. Y'all don't want to talk about it. Y'all think you're above it. Y'all think that was just your grandfather's shit. But no, y'all doing all this shit, whatever. You think it's for fun, it's still going on.
No, but I'm
Um,
not a bad person. I'm
but
not.
I'm not a bad person.
I'm just having fun. I just think it's
Right.
a joke.
It's just a joke.
I don't really. I'm not racist. Right?
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Shame on you for not knowing how racist that actually is.
Exactly. And in the show they were, because it's a radio show, white people call it, race is a social construct. Bullshit. Okay, bullshit. And don't try to change the subject. Okay. And that's why shit's still going on to this day. Because with that mindset, you cannot, like, racism will never go away because you're always going to see my skin color. And when you ignore my skin color, that means you're ignoring my culture and what my people have gone through. You know, and my skin color is what makes me special, and it makes me who I am and who defines who I am. So I want you to put some respect on my skin color and notice the cultural differences. So what do you have to say about this pilot episode, since it had an impact on you?
Yeah, it definitely had an impact because of the dynamics that they wrote out to us. So again,
Mm.
I seen the movie. I don't know where it started or ended and where this picks up, but I appreciate.
Oh,
Uh,
picks up the blackface party. Yeah.
oh, Blackface Party.
Yeah. So the movie ends at the blackface party, and this TV show starts at the blackface party.
Right. So, well, going back to the four divisions of the groups of people that on the Black Caucus.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I'm not sure of the specific names, but it was
I
like
have them here. It was the Black Student Union,
there
African
it is.
American Student Union, Black AF, and CORE. Yeah.
Who the American Student Union was the Black people.
All of them were black. They're all
I
four
know,
different
but
black.
I'm throwing up air quotes. I'm sorry, you can't see me.
I can't.
Yeah. So the Black Student Union was the one that Sam is a part of, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Then the African American Student Union was the ones that didn't do anything, but they took the credit for.
Yes.
Got it. Black as fuck was the one with the hashtags,
Yeah.
and the core was the giddy up boys.
Yeah, the dean, because the one from the film, he's in
Dean's
it.
son. Yeah,
The dean's son. Yeah.
got it. Okay. Yeah. So I felt like that was a great, like, I know the Blackface Party started it off. I felt like that was a great intro into the groups that she is connected to. And
Mhm.
how who's her best friend and how is that correlation happening? How all of them affect what she does on a daily basis from different standpoints. I felt like that dynamic was real good, especially for somebody that was just coming into the show early on. And I know that this is a pilot again, so it was great writing. I mean, they've been sitting on this pilot possibly for years, so perfecting it to get it off the ground. So I felt that was
Mhm.
I felt like the intentions of her throwing this party as a social experiment, like that was just genius. What she says is just genius. So when she gets behind that microphone, I felt it compelling to where she even busted in on the white girl at the end and told her, "All right, get up." Like it's bounce. And they had that much respect in her voice that A, white girl didn't get up and didn't start no shit, and B,
Mhm.
the guy behind the glass still kept the mic rolling because he could have.
Yep.
So I felt like that the dynamic of the entire show and how it drifted and it turned. I don't know where you're gonna go from here, your screen wise, so I don't want to give too much away. But it like it started off with a bang with the party, and then going into the description of them, segregated dorms and all this stuff. So yeah,
Yeah. Even the guy, her boss with the radio station, he could have called the cops
yeah,
because
he could have done anything. I mean, your
exactly.
skills. You're gonna silence me? Like that would
Yeah.
have probably killed her more than going to jail for the night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't want to give too much away about the film, but the differences with with the core Coco, the one who is Sam's nemesis in the movie. Coco is I guess she's a token. So she only hangs out with white people. She says in the film, "Damn, white people just want to feel like what it is to be black, so I just let them." So she's kind of disenfranchised from being black. So yeah, so that's the difference in the characters. So
Got it.
she's completely different in the TV show, but to relate it back to the civil rights, like it's 2017 and there's still segregated dorms.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our college experience. Was there a black dorm at Ohio State where you went?
There was not a specific black dorm, but there was a dorm that a lot of black people stayed in.
I think that's what this is. And they don't specifically call it a black dorm, but it just so happens, and that's the name of the dorm, Armstrong. It just so happens that all the black people are there.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a specific street on Ohio
Mm,
State's campus that back when I was in school, if you were black, you were on South Campus. Like,
mm,
yeah, there were some on North Campus, not many, but you saw the congregated, and it was crazy because we had a multicultural center right at the heart of that area. So
mm,
it's kind of telling that we're on the west side of campus, Southwest campus. That's where our multicultural center is, and that's where we congregated a lot. We had a lot of the fraternity, sorority, cookouts over there.
mm,
They even gave us a little oval. They called it South Oval, and it was right
mm,
outside of our dorms. But then you had the major oval that you all see on TV. That's the big oval leading to North Campus. So
mm.
it was always a dynamic. But no, we didn't have like segregated dorms. But you felt the difference.
Um, with Loyola, because I went to a lot of colleges. With Loyola, you felt that there weren't that many black people. We were 2% black people, and the black people hung together. It's
Oh yeah,
like,
Ohio State
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's like I could be like, oh hey, like I'm just gonna sit with the black people. Like if I don't see anyone, I'll sit by myself. But if I see us, I'm sitting near us because it's better, safer in numbers, and we're not trying to be segregated. We're not trying to be separate, but it's safer that way. I don't want to have to explain how you're racist. I don't want to have to explain. I don't want to get into it with you. I just want to sit down, have a good time, laugh, eat, whatever. But it's always political, even when it's not trying to be political. So yeah.
Mine was a
Nah.
little different, my experience, especially as a freshman, more so as a freshman, I would say. I came
Okay.
into the architecture program.
Mm,
Was a specific program for those wanting to do architecture that we stayed on South Campus in front of these dorms that I'm talking about. And it was more so for the advanced uh, people that were in programs. Like we came out there with the intentions on going into this program, not I'm just going to the Ohio State University. It was like, no, I'm coming focused in architecture. I'm coming focused in engineering. We stayed in these dorms that were a little bit more upgraded. Uh,
mm.
however, what'd you say?
I was like, oh, I'm agreeing. I'm like, I'm going,
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, uh, sorry, that threw me off.
sorry. I'm
No, you
so
good.
sorry.
Damn it. Uh,
You say in these dorms they're a little bit more upgraded. That was the last thing you said.
yeah. Okay. No, no, no. Sorry. Because we came in with specific mindsets. So me being in architecture, there's a lot of white people that are in architecture, much more than black people. So my first freshman year roommate was a white guy. Uh, and again, when I said that earlier, I was telling the truth. I knew of racism, but I didn't know racism. And I didn't
Mm.
know when, like, I mean, we went to school together. We had white people that went to our school. We weren't in the hood. We weren't in the
Yeah, but even the white people hung together.
they hung together. Yeah, right. You still had that segregation, even if we didn't have like different water fountains that we're drinking from. Like
Yeah.
it was different, and you were mobilized different. So it was a difference, but I really didn't feel it my freshman year because I kind of was forced into being cool with the white folks, and I'm cool with everybody. So it just was a win-win. Like I hate when people say I don't see color, but I try not to see color
Mm.
because when you do, that that puts you at a disadvantage.
Because you're going off of stereotypes.
You're going off of every stereotype that you can imagine. Like they say, you think you have an idea about somebody in the first 13 seconds that you have a conversation with them. It could be less or it could be more. I could have just made up that number, but that number. It's either 8 to 13 seconds that you have an idea about this person in that first amount of seconds. And it's like you stand no chance with somebody that already has a preconception of you just because of the color of your skin. So this is just another level for my white folks that have joined us this evening. But it's just I had to walk into a situation to say, hey, I'm cool too. Yeah, I'm a smart individual. I'm trying to get in architecture. I realized that Rich Central High School did not prepare me for an architecture program at the Ohio State University. I literally changed my mind that first day of class. I was like, oh no, this ain't it. And I'm glad I did because my roommate didn't have a life come second semester. We were all on the same floor being architecture students in the same building
Mm.
floor. Everybody was an architecture student. That worked out for them because then they got to sit out in the hallway and work on their projects. And then others ends, they just knew not to come down this hallway during this week because they got projects out in the hallway. So it was cool for them. I just like looking at them because I still had architecture in my head. I did an internship back in high school with an architecture firm, so I was pretty confident. I was good in CAD class, but again, going to class, it was like, no, this ain't it. So I saw how much of their freshman life dwindled away in that freshman year, where it was like, no, I could have almost lost my scholarship my freshman year. I could have got kicked out my freshman year. I kicked it my freshman year. But again, I lived. And yeah, they may be architects right now and they could be living fabulous lives, but I wouldn't have changed anything because I got to live the life that I lived and I still am living. So, no, it was a different experience. But again, it was like, I didn't see that racism until I was in class and they wheeled out them TVs and we saw it, or they pulled down the projectors by that point and we put it up on film, and you actually knew why Juneteenth was important. You knew
Mm.
the riots happened, and you saw and you could correlate that with something that you just saw happen in the news and why it was so important that this, that, and the other happened. And then on top of all of that, 2001 is when I graduated. I graduated
Well,
from high school and then went to college, but the Ohio State University doesn't start until September. What happened in September in 2001? One of
9/11.
terrorist acts that could have happened on this planet. I mean, on this country.
9/11. Yeah.
From my standpoint, but it happened right then. So we're leaving off to school. I want to say it was like September 14th or something like that. I literally was out on the golf course caddying, was off on the first tee, and I was talking to my golfer when he got the page, and then the next golfer got the page, and then the next golfer, and they were like, "We're going in." They had family and friends in the city at the time. I don't know if they were specifically in the building, but that was my way into college, and it was almost like we're at a fresh starting point. We got to treat everybody like human beings. We just saw what happened 5 days ago.
Mm.
So, yeah, I mean, seeing this again and seeing college again on the screen, it's cool to see the dynamic of it, but to also see, I had a radio show when I was on campus. And we talked,
No, see now, wait, now you're gonna go on a tangent. Let me bring it back. Let me bring it back.
oh, yeah, bring it back. Yeah, no, go
Right,
ahead.
right. Let me bring it back.
Go
But
ahead.
my next point was biracial students dating white men, and I think it was interesting that Sam was talking about her dating Gabe. She's biracial, but they're like, oh no, you're not Rashida Jones biracial. You're Tracy Ellis Ross biracial. That's a
Right,
different conversation, and I thought that was interesting. I didn't even know that we separated them two, but Rashida Jones doesn't really talk about being black. She just talks about I am Rashida Jones. I'm not one specific color, but Tracy Ellis Ross is like, no, I'm a black woman. The
yeah,
end.
right,
Um, but don't fall in love with the oppressor. I thought that was interesting, and it makes it more nuanced, and I do like that about it. But
yeah,
what I liked about this was we're addressing white people in a group versus one on one. So we see the evolution of it. We went from long walk home. We don't say anything. We just kind of bucket, keep our head down, so don't say anything. And then I am not your Negro. We see it a little bit more aggressive, and we saw the going back and forth between today and now. We're protesting, we're more angry, and then we see on a television show that we're gonna talk back. We are not our ancestors, and you can get it. You want to fight? I'm fighting you back. And I like that about that. And then here now we're addressing the group. Like I'm gonna make a whole radio show saying dear white people, and you're going to listen to this, and I'm going to call you out on your privilege and your racism, and I don't care what you say, I want all the smoke. So I
right,
love seeing that evolution. I love that they're again discussing Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, and Sandra Bland, because we were outraged and we're still outraged. We'll always say their name. They are always will be important to us. Yes. And then my last thing, they were like, don't try to Miley Cyrus out of our pain. I thought that was really good because Miley Cyrus did like that whole 360. She used us to get her fame back and disowned us after a while. And like I don't even like where rap is going. So it's like you culture vulture, fuck you.
right.
Um and then what I one thing I would change is that I was a little confused whether or not it was a continuation or whatnot. Because, like I said, some of the storylines they weren't a continuation. That was very interesting. Oh, my ear pod died. But what did you like, and what would you dislike about this episode or the pilot?
Uh,
Oh,
the pilot or the theme all the way. Oh, still the pilot. Um, I don't know. Honestly, I can't say that I disliked any part of the pilot. I really enjoyed the dynamics of it, especially seeing how blackety black she is turns into not so much. I'm gonna go with my heart. I don't care what color he is. But this
Mm,
the dynamic of the groups around her, how they relate to him and how they attack him, how he feels like she didn't come to his defense until
I
she,
like that part too.
yeah. So like I like that. So I don't really see, I didn't really see parts that I would have changed or had any dislike for.
So to rank it, what would you give it? I gave it a 4.5 because the whole storyline, because I hadn't seen the movie in years, so I couldn't remember if it was a continuation. So I'll give it a 4.5. What would you rank this out of 5?
Yeah, I gotta give it a 5 off the strength of how she came back at the very end.
Mm,
That put the
she did
cherry
end
on
strong.
top. Yeah, she finished strong and she made sure that she still had her booty afterwards. It's like, Gabe, I'm
That's
sorry. If you ain't take nothing away from her, what she said, she was sorry.
yeah, yeah.
She want her boo back or whatever she said.
But yeah, I like that too. I do like it. But that is the end of thank you, Lawrence, for doing this episode. I can't wait for you to do other episodes as well. Hope you had a good time.
I did.
And
This was fun.
so, I'm sorry.
No, I said I did. This was fun. I appreciate it.
Good, good, good. And once again, our viewers, you can catch this on HausHillEntertainment.com or on our app. It should be on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcasting networks. And uh, you guys have a good evening. Let's see.